Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. So I thought I would continue my annual tradition of when I make a compilation of my 5 most viewed videos from the year. A lot of them were the Roscoe's recaps because I know you all love them, but I thought that'd be a bit boring, so I have actually switched up some of them just to give you a bit more variation. So here you go, here are the top 5 most viewed videos on my channel of 2025. Also, thank you so much for your amazing support this year. Honestly, it's incredible that I get to do this for a living and I pinch myself every day. So thank you all so much, and I hope you have an amazing new year and I look forward to seeing you all in 2026. Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. So I'm back for another Roscoe's recap, and this viewing party was for season 17 episode 3, and the guest this week was Joella. Today we're going to be talking about the truth about what really happened with Hormona Lisa's dress and the stones, Joella responds to the backlash that she got from the episode, and Hormona exposes Susie Toot for breaking the rules. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. So they started out by saying that Lucky Stars was supposed to be the other guest at Roscoe's this week, but unfortunately she couldn't make it, so she's going to be at Roscoe's next week instead. They then watched a bit of the episode, and Naysha mentioned the Badunkadunk tank twist and saving someone from elimination that happened in the last episode, and Naysha asked Joella if on set it looked as produced as it seemed. Joella said that what they told the contestants was that Michelle had to leave to go and film something else, and they were all confused why Michelle would be double booked. Then, as they showed in Untucked, they got the contestants to go off stage, and Joella assumed that there was some kind of technical issue. Then they came back on stage, and RuPaul did the bit where they said they needed a virgin, and then they revealed Michelle in the dunk tank. And all the contestants were gagged because they genuinely didn't know that that was going to happen. Joella then asked if it looked produced, and everyone said yes and laughed, and Joella paused and said, quote, "I'm going to stay silent on that one." But Naysha said although they felt it was produced, they actually liked the twist because it gave the queens another chance to showcase their looks in another episode because they spend so much on their runway packages. Naysha then brought up the moment in last week's Untucked when Hormona Lisa asked Joella who she thought was in the bottom, and Joella said to Hormona that she was probably going to be in the bottom, and Naysha asked Joella if she contemplated being honest with her or not. Joella explained that she did contemplate it because she likes being honest, but she doesn't like hurting people's feelings. Then Joella said, quote, "I always contemplate, can this be take it, or is she going to cry and get mad at me? I thought she could take it, and that's all I'll say." And the audience gasped and laughed a bit. Caramel then asked Joella about some of the romances that seem to be forming on the season, such as between Corey and Lydia, as well as Arietti and Lucky, and Caramel asked Joella if the tension between them was real or were they just putting it on. Joella said it's definitely real and she's had conversations with those people, and the way that they talk about, quote, the people they are camping with in their bunk beds is very real. Joella also shared that every time the cast does something together, Corey and Lydia always stay in the same hotel room. And Joella said, quote, "they're effing girl," and everyone laughed. Naysha then asked if the season 17 cast has a group chat, and Joella said yes. Naysha then asked if any of the queens are mad at each other yet. Joella said they were, but over the past few months, they are all getting along and they all love each other. Joella then shared that she and Hormona had been messaging recently and they love each other, and the fight that happened on this week's episode between them happened so long ago when they filmed the show. Naysha then said that often in the group chats, people get mad and leave the chat, but Joella said that the season 17 cast didn't do that. Naysha then asked if Joella got upset seeing the girls talking about her behind her back in the confessionals. Joella said, to be honest, when she watched the episode, she was completely unaware that they had been saying those things behind her back, but she understands because if you say something about someone, they're going to bite back, especially queens like Corey and Lana. And Joella said although it did hurt her at first watching the episode, she realised that she was telling them to their face the way she felt, whereas they were, quote, running around scared. So she's not hurt anymore and she loves them. They then got to the part of the episode where the queens found out that this week's challenge was a design challenge, and Joella said that she didn't know how to sew, and Naysha asked her about it. Joella said when you're preparing for Drag Race, there's a lot that you have to prepare for and you get very overwhelmed. And Joella said she did have sewing lessons, but none of it sunk in and she can't remember any of it. And she commended people who can sew because it's really hard. Later, Joella shared a fun fact and said that in the past, she entered a local competition and she actually won the design challenge part of it against people that can sew. Naysha then asked what this competition consisted of and looked at the audience and everyone started laughing. Joella explained that they had to make an outfit using things that you'd find in your home. Naysha then jokingly asked whether that meant that she made these things at home with no supervision, but Joella said that this was during the pandemic and they both laughed. Joella then joked and said that if you could see the outfit, you would say that it looked like crap, and it did look bad, but she won and doesn't know how. And I did try and find a copy of the picture of this look, but I couldn't find that Joella had posted it anywhere. They then watched the part of the episode where Ru does the walkthroughs with the queens, and Naysha asked if anything happened that didn't get shown. Joella said everything that she said to Ru did get shown, but in the confessional, she did say that the reason she didn't want to change her outfit design was because she wanted to wear something that she could perform in, presumably because she knew that she was likely going to be in the bottom, but they didn't show that part of the confessional. Naysha then asked if Joella was in the headspace already that she knew she was going to have to lip sync. Joella said that looking around, pretty much everyone in the cast can sew, and 2 + 2 = 4, so because she can't sew, she knew she'd probably end up in the bottom 2, but she felt confident that she could save herself in the lip sync. Joella also said that a lot of queens on season 17 learnt how to sew just for Drag Race, and nowadays lots of queens don't know how to sew, and there are more traditional queens who do know how to sew, and Joella thinks it's a good thing to know how to sew, but a lot of up-and-coming queens don't know how to sew, so when they get the call for Drag Race, they specifically learn how to sew. Later, Naysha said that Joella had said the design challenge was the challenge that she was most afraid for, but which challenge was she most excited about or hoping for? Joella said she really wanted to do a Rusical because she loves musical theatre, music and performing, so she really wanted a Rusical. And some people started laughing almost a bit awkwardly, presumably because Joella may have inadvertently spilled that either there was no Rusical on the season or that she gets eliminated before the Rusical, although this is just a guess and is not confirmed, and then they quickly moved on. They then watched the part of the episode where the queens were making their design challenge outfits, and Joella shared that although it wasn't shown in the edit, Hormona Lisa actually helped Joella a lot with her outfit, and she let Joella borrow one of her sewing patterns, and she also cut out Joella's pattern for her, and then Acacia helped Joella with the sewing. Joella also said that Drag Race updated the sewing machines and they're now really high-tech with touchscreens, and even the queens who do know how to sew were confused by them. There was then a part of the episode when Jules Sparkles was mad at Anya Nerve because Anya had taken the rest of the trim, which Jules had said that she needed, and Jules then confronted Anya about it and they argued in the workroom. Naysha asked Joella if that is how it happened or was it worse in real life. Joella said what we saw in the episode was an accurate depiction of what happened, but what we didn't see in the episode was that the night before when the queens were leaving, Jules did go up to some of the queens and say something about it, and then the next day at lunch, Anya came up to Joella and said that Jules was getting on her nerves, and Jules also said that Anya was getting on her nerves. But at first, Joella really didn't think anything of it, and then all of a sudden it went down. Caramel then said that what we didn't see in the episode was the exchange between Lexi Love and Hormona Lisa when Lexi called Hormona out for using her own stones on her outfit, which isn't allowed. And Hormona looked annoyed and came into the workroom and had to pull off all of the stones. And Caramel asked Joella what really happened. Joella explained that in the morning, they gave the queens an extra hour to finish their garments. Joella was with Acacia, who was helping her sew her outfit, and Joella said she had already clocked that Hormona was using her own stones, which isn't allowed, but Joella didn't say anything about it. But then, out of nowhere, they heard Lexi yelling, and she was saying, quote, "No, you know you're not supposed to do that, you're playing dirty, you're cheating, that's cheating." And apparently Hormona said that they were her earrings and she was allowed to put them on her outfit, but Lexi just shouted, quote, "No, no, this is wrong." And Joella said it was intense, but none of it was caught on camera, and she didn't think they were going to keep it in the episode because it all happened off camera. Naysha then asked, did Hormona just rip off the stones, or did a producer have to come on set? Naysha then said, quote, "Was it Mandy? Because we all love Mandy." And then Naysha made a face and looked at the audience and everyone laughed. Just in case you don't know, previously at Roscoe's, Naysha has made several not-so-complimentary comments about a producer named Mandy, and it's become quite a well-known thing. Joella smiled and then said, quote, "Like Hormona said, she was told to not continue with those on her outfit, so she was told." Naysha then said, quote, "Effing Mandy, I know it was you, B. I know you watched this show. I know it was you, Mandy. Good job." Also, regarding this moment between Lexi and Hormona, I saw that some extra drama happened to do with this on Twitter. So, shortly after the episode came out, Susie Toot tweeted saying, "Oh, y'all should have been there when Lexi let Hormona have it. God, I wish the cameras were up." Hormona then responded to Susie's tweet and said, "She did not let me have it." A Twitter user then replied to Hormona and said, "If anything, she was helping you from getting into trouble." But Hormona said, "That's literally not it either, lol." Hormona also replied to Susie's original tweet and said, "Loved the stones on your little headpiece." And presumably Hormona was exposing the fact that Susie also used her own stones on the outfit, which is not allowed. And people in the comments then started questioning whether Susie also broke the rules. And interestingly, Susie deleted her tweet shortly after this happened. Hormona subsequently tweeted saying, "Who else also used rhinestones brought from home? Clock it." Season 16 contestant Geneva Carr then tweeted saying that on Season 16 in the Mother Ball, someone used chains that they brought from home, and she told them in private that they can't do that. And she said, "I was so nice, Hormona, I would have let you use those stones." People then started speculating that Susie had tried to joke about Hormona using the stones, but actually Hormona had exposed the fact that Susie had also broken the rules. There were also some people questioning whether Lexi herself had also used stones on her own outfit, and was it therefore hypocritical for her to call out Hormona? Lexi later tweeted and said, "Let me set the record straight. Susie also broke the rules with Hormona and I called both of them out. However, Hormona was the only one that brought it up once we were filming. Secondly, the stones on my fit were from the challenge table. Clock it." People in the comments then started saying that Lexi was snitching. But Lexi replied saying, "Get yourself together, Hormona snitched on herself." A few other queens also commented on Lexi's tweet, such as Jules Sparkles, who said, "Lexi, be a sister, oh my god." Candy Muse said, "B, I would have snitched too, production, she's cheating." And Lana Duray said, "Susie catching strays." Susie then retweeted Lexi's tweet and said, "Just got off the phone with RuPaul, I'm disqualified, they are editing me out of the season. Thanks, Lexi." Although this is presumably a joke. And I thought this was an interesting backstory that we didn't hear in the episode, and it sounds like Susie also potentially broke the rules, but Hormona and Lexi have now both called her out about it. Anyway, back to Roscoe's, and Naysha asked Joella what it was like hearing the critiques about her outfit. Joella said people love to call her delusional, but Joella agreed and said that she didn't come prepared, and it was her own fault and she deserved the critiques that she got. Joella also explained that you have to walk the runway twice, and after she did the first walk, she remembers the way the judges were looking at her, and when she was backstage, she started bawling, crying, because she was so disappointed in herself and knew that she hadn't done as well as she wanted to, and that she had to walk the runway again. They then talked a bit more about the critiques, and Joella said what she didn't like was that her critiques were that she wasn't prepared, whereas with Lucky's critiques, they just said it wasn't in her wheelhouse. Then Joella said, quote, "B, she makes bleep for a living. What are you talking about? I don't make anything. I'm not in my wheelhouse." The other host, Batty Davis, then said that Lucky doesn't use a sewing machine, and Joella said, quote, "Me either." And then there was a bit of an awkward pause and people laughed. Batty then asked how much help Joella got with her outfit, and Joella said Hormona cut her pattern out for her, but that was it. And then Acacia helped Joella set up her sewing machine about 10 times, but the needle kept popping. So eventually Joella got out the hot glue gun to do the outfit. They then watched the part of the episode when Joella landed in the bottom and had to lip sync against Lucky, and Naysha asked how she felt. Joella said she knew she was going to be in the bottom, but she felt confident because she's a performer, and she knew that she was going to beat Lucky. Caramel then said that in Untucked, some of the other queens were being less sympathetic than they were being in person, and Cara asked Joella if anyone voiced their concerns to Joella in that moment. Joella said no, and she's reacting to it in real time watching the episode, but it's weird because they were so nice in person. But what annoyed Joella is that she is well known in LA, so she doesn't know why they edited it that way in Untucked when Joella was saying that, and they kept cutting to the other queens making faces about what Joella was saying. Joella also said that some of the queens had even been calling her by her old drag name, which was Joella Perry, so they must have known her and have followed her from before. So she's not sure why they were acting like that when Joella was saying how well known she is in LA. She also said that what she doesn't like is that the other queens chose that moment to be shady about her. In other moments, she was okay with it, but in that moment, that was a moment that Joella didn't really want to share, but she was so emotionally overwhelmed that it came out. But during Untucked, Joella said she noticed that a lot of the queens were ignoring her and that they were more catering to Lucky, and Joella felt, quote, abandoned. But she said it's okay because she always finds her own way, and she sent Lucky home. They moved on, and Naysha said Arietti won the challenge, and the other said no, it was Sam Starr, but Naysha said Arietti basically won. Naysha said she thinks that if Arietti had won, Sam wouldn't have cared and would just have moved on, whereas she thinks because Sam won, Arietti would be annoyed and it would mess with her head and she'll be vocal and be dramatic about it. And Naysha thinks Arietti did win the runway in her opinion. Joella then said, referring to Arietti, quote, I mean, I agree, but hopefully she finds the words to convey what she's feeling inside because she don't know how to talk. And then some people in the audience gasped. They then watched the part of Untucked when Joella went up to Lucky and said that they were both probably going to be in the bottom, and Joella was sad because she was going to have to send Lucky home because she knew she was going to beat her in the lip sync. Batty said that Joella is, quote, wild for saying that, and Cara said some people say it's delusion, but she just thinks it's C-wordy confidence. Naysha then said in her opinion, Joella was not playing fair in that moment and was trying to get in Lucky's head, and she asked Joella if that was the strategy. Joella said that really wasn't what she was trying to do. If it was any of the other queens, then yes, she would have played that strategy. But Lucky is such a sweetheart, and the cast was so nurturing to her, and Lucky, quote, doesn't have a shady bone in her body. And Joella said she did feel bad, and that's why she wanted to go up to Lucky and tell her that she didn't want to send her home, but she was going to send her home. Batty then asked Joella, was it maybe because the other girls were supporting Lucky and giving her her moment, whereas they weren't doing that for Joella? Joella said it was more so because she felt like this was the last time she would get to speak to Lucky, quote, before I never see her again. And some people in the audience gasped and laughed a bit, but Naysha clarified that when you get eliminated, you really don't see anyone until months later. The episode ended, and Naysha read out the names of all of the first eliminated queens from Drag Race and said it's so hard being the first out queens and they always get overlooked, so make sure you go and follow them online and support them, such as Lucky Stars, and everyone cheered. They then moved on to the Q&A, and an audience member said they've changed Untucked because you used to see the eliminated queen packing up their stuff and reading letters from other queens, and they asked Joella if that's still the case. Joella said they changed a lot of Untucked now, but you do get to leave letters for the eliminated queen, but they didn't show any of it in the episode. And they also don't do the part anymore in Untucked where the eliminated queen drives off in the van. And Joella said, quote, "I was looking forward to it, and then they didn't do it, I was like, what?" And finally, they had a video message from Blue Hydrangea, who was on Drag Race UK Season 1, and she was also the winner of UK vs. the World Season 1. And Blue asked a few different questions. The first question was whether that was the genuine reaction when they found out Katy Perry was a guest judge, because Blue said on UK vs. the World, RuPaul would shout out crass and inappropriate things to get the queens to react bigger because they didn't have a clue who the guest judges were. Joella said that she had heard people say before that the queens are told to react bigger, but that's actually false. And even though some people are not very fond of Katy Perry right now, that was the genuine reaction because a lot of the queens grew up listening to her and perform her songs, so it was a big deal for her to be a guest judge. Blue's second question was, did they actually film the Squirrel Games in episode 1 before they entered the workroom as was shown in the episode? Joella said yes, they did film Squirrel Games before the workroom entrances, and that was the first time she saw all of the queens. And that's also why her wig kept sliding back, because they had been in their outfits at that point for about 7 hours, and she also said that she couldn't stand up or sit down while she was in her trailer beforehand. And finally, Blue asked, does Joella think that Hormona was always going to stay regardless of which lever she chose, or did she just pick Lucky? Joella nodded and said, I think she picked Lucky, right guys? You know, Hormona, she's like smart, you know? But it sounded like Joella was probably being a bit sarcastic. And Naysha finished by saying, quote, by Lucky you mean produced, and people laughed. Also, just as some extra information outside of Roscoe's, I saw that in the RPDR drama subreddit that Lexi Love had posted an Instagram story saying, to those at Roscoe's tonight, really though? However, she deleted the story pretty quickly after she posted it, which is why I didn't see it. There were then several theories on Reddit as to why Lexi may have posted that, but a lot of people seem to think that what Lexi was saying was that apparently the audience at Roscoe's really wasn't living for Joella and they weren't cheering for her, and maybe Lexi found out about it and was calling it out. And I don't know if this is the case or not, but in the comments on the Roscoe's YouTube video, there were some comments criticising Joella, saying that she was unlikable. But then there were also quite a lot of comments defending Joella and saying that she was just being entertaining, and they also said that there was a weird energy at Roscoe's this week. And Joella seemingly responded to the criticism that she got, not just from Roscoe's but also from the episode in general. And after the episode, Joella tweeted saying, I identify with my haters because we both love judging things we're not qualified to judge. Just know you're suffering from delusional dynasty disease too. Your symptoms are just so strong that you don't know it. Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. So today we're going to be going through some recent drama to do with Ginger Minj being accused of lying. As some of you may know, Acid Betty and Dire Betty have a podcast called The Petty Betties, where they discuss Drag Race. They recently had Denali as a guest, and they were discussing All Stars 10 because they were all on the same bracket together. Acid brought up that she recently saw a podcast clip where Ginger Minj said something that Acid doesn't think is true. Ginger was talking about in episode 7, Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo were the guest judges. The top two that week were Ginger and Daya, and they lip-synced to the song Defying Gravity from Wicked, but it was the original Broadway cast recording, not from the Wicked movie. I found the original interview with Ginger, which was on the Sentimental Man podcast. Ginger told a story where she said that Cynthia Erivo did the quote battle cry part of the song live on set.
The funniest part was, and I was hoping they would leave it in, but they didn't. They do that whole setup of, as a tribute to the OG Broadway witches, we're gonna da-da-da-da-da. And then Cynthia goes, because they wouldn't release art. Because this was before the movie came out. We all told her, we were like, we're not gonna do this lip sync until you stand up and do the battle cry. So Cynthia Erivo stood up and did the whole battle cry as loud as could be, sent chills through my spine, which is why I was crying before the song even started.
However, Acid then brought this up on her podcast with Daya and Denali and said that she doesn't remember this happening, and the others seem to agree.
I don't recall her or Ariana singing. If either one of them sang like live then, I probably would have shat my pants.
Them saying that did not happen.
Yeah. Like none of them
Well, listen, I could have been in a full blackout mode, but I think I was standing right next to her on stage, and I don't remember any of that, but...
You don't recall...
Maybe I was in my own brain. Who
She did not do the battle cry. That is not true.
After this podcast clip came out and was posted on their socials, people in the comments started saying that Ginger was lying, and one person even called her, quote, the Robbie Turner of this era. I'm sure many of you will already know that reference, but just in case you don't, Robbie Turner from season 8 infamously once posted that she was in a fatal Uber car crash. But it later turned out that she had imagined the whole thing, which caused her to get a lot of backlash for lying, and Robbie later quit drag. Kim Chi also once tweeted saying that Robbie lied when she said that it was her birthday during the filming of season 8. But going back to Ginger, people started commenting on the original clip from the Sentimental Man podcast, saying that Ginger was lying. Then, on the Petty Betty's podcast clip, which they posted on TikTok, Bob the drag queen commented saying, I've been trying to tell y'all. And someone replied to Bob saying, I just watched the episode about y'all talking about her, quote, meeting with Kathy Najimy. I vaguely remembered something about this, but I couldn't 100% remember, so I went back and researched it and ended up going down a bit of a rabbit hole. So I'll go through everything I found, because there seemed to be a few different stories about Ginger potentially making things up. Okay, so for context, Kathy Najimy is a famous actress who has been in many different things. One of the roles that she is perhaps best known for is as Mary Sanderson in the 1993 Disney movie Hocus Pocus. Kathy is seemingly a big fan of Drag Race and is also friends with RuPaul, and she was even a guest judge during season 2. A few months ago, Bob the drag queen on her podcast with Monet Exchange recounted a story that Bob had about Kathy Najimy, and she has told this story before, but she retold it recently. I'll play part of the clip, but basically, Bob said that before she got on Drag Race, she met Kathy, and Kathy was so impressed by Bob that she called RuPaul personally and told Ru to cast Bob on Drag Race.
Kathy Najimy saw my show and she was very impressed. So Captain and Jimmy came up to me and said, hey, meet me upstairs by the French fries. We need to talk. We got upstairs. She used this like ship phone or her cell phone and she called a number. The person didn't answer and she said, RuPaul, I am sitting with the next winner of your show. You need to call me back. I was gagged. So anyway, so the story goes, RuPaul came to my show with the monster. She tweeted about me and then I went on and I won the next season of her show.
Bob then explained the story and said that Ginger Minj potentially made up her own story about Kathy Najimy. Just to explain the context, as many of you will know, back in 2022, they did a sequel called Hocus Pocus 2, and Ginger, Cornbread, and Kimora Hall had a cameo appearance in the movie that was quite a big deal. When they filmed Hocus Pocus 2, Cornbread had already filmed season 14, but the season hadn't aired yet, so no one knew that Cornbread was going to be on Drag Race. In an interview with Entertainment Weekly in 2022, Cornbread revealed that on set, Kathy was so impressed by Cornbread, she said that she should get on Drag Race. Apparently, Kathy said to Cornbread, quote, "I know RuPaul personally. I'm the reason Bob the drag queen got on the show. I'm going to call RuPaul about you." Cornbread apparently replied to Kathy saying, quote, "Kathy, baby, you know what? Don't do that. I appreciate you, but don't do that." This is presumably because Cornbread had actually already filmed the season unknown to Kathy, and Cornbread didn't want to get in trouble by revealing that she had already been on the show. So, going back to the Ginger situation, Bob said that she once saw a podcast clip of Ginger where Ginger said that Kathy came up to her during the filming of Hocus Pocus 2 and said how great Ginger was and that she was going to call RuPaul to say that Ginger should win the next season of All Stars. But Bob seemed to imply that Ginger may have sort of co-opted the story about her and Cornbread with Kathy Najimy.
In an interview, Ginger Minge combined me and Cornbread's story and somehow made it her story. Now, there is a chance that Kathy and Jimmy did reach out to Ginger Minge and say the same thing in private. There is a world where that had happened. I will say that. But Ginger Minge took it. She was like, Kathy and Jimmy said, called RuPaul and said, if Ginger Minge doesn't win this next season of All Stars, then something or the other. Maybe Jacob can find that quote somewhere as well. But I was like, I remember seeing it and being like, that's what happened to me.
I found the full podcast episode that this clip comes from, and later in the podcast, Bob kind of joked that Ginger is convinced that Bob doesn't like her.
Blair St. Clair, Ginger Minge people are convinced I do not like them. But Ginger Minge is convinced, which is awkward because we have the same manager.
I then did some digging and I found a few other instances where Bob seemingly said that Ginger was potentially making things up or that Bob called Ginger out. So, back when Ginger was on All Stars 6, Bob was the guest on the pit stop for the first episode. When reviewing Ginger's infamous glamour toad entrance look, Bob said this.
I think it's because she called herself a glamour toad, but I don't know if people remember that.
Okay, first of all, bitch, glamour where? This outfit, y'all, this outfit is ugly. I'm not gonna mince my words.
Yeah, it's really
If this season doesn't win an Emmy, it's because of this outfit.
Ginger seemingly clapped back at Bob about this and tweeted about it saying, "And for the record, the entrance look is intentionally ugly because when you see a toad, your initial reaction is ew, but when you look beneath the surface, you realize how beautiful they are." And Bob replied to this tweet saying, "Then girl, you nailed it, LOL." And Ginger replied with a gif of an explosive fist bump. Bob later talked about this incident on stage and even joked that she had a, quote, feud with Ginger Minge.
So me and Ginger Minge's feud started because I was on the pit stop with Trixie Mattel, and Ginger Minge came out in this hideous, it was a hideous garment. And she later went online and said it was supposed to be hideous. I'm like, okay, you got what you fucking wanted. Now then, Ginger Minge went and told everyone, Bob said if this season doesn't win an Emmy, it's because of me. I'm like, that is not what I said, but
Another time was during All Stars 6. Bob was reviewing the episodes with Thorgy Thor on Bob's YouTube channel. In episode 11, in the challenge, the queens had to do an entertaining monologue, and Ginger told a story about being given a pair of ruby slippers. However, Bob and Thorgy said that they don't think this story is real.
Can I say a controversial statement?
Yes, please. Love it.
I don't believe this happened. Is that horrible?
Why is that controversial? It's your opinion, and it definitely didn't happen. Complete lies. This is not real.
Then, in a different incident, Bob was once doing a video with Naomi Smalls, and Bob told a story about a certain queen who borrowed a wig from Naomi.
There was a queen who asked Naomi if she could borrow a wig. She takes the wig, wraps it, like when you basically backcomb the wig to make it a ball, and then she shoved the wig inside of her wig and then went on stage, performed, and then gave it back in the nutted ball. That's a gag. Could you imagine having that audacity?
Naomi then revealed later that the queen in question was Ginger Minj.
I think we should just like set the record straight.
How do we set the record straight?
I mean, it was Ginger Minj.
Since then, people have speculated that Naomi doesn't like Ginger. For example, the YouTube channel Monet XC Videos put together a montage of every time Bob asked Naomi who was going to win All Stars 10, and whenever Ginger's name was mentioned, Naomi seemed to make a face.
Who's going to win Drag Race All-Star Season 10? I think it's going to be Ginger Minj. Who's going to win All-Star Season 10? I think it's going to be Ginger Minj still. I still think it's going to be Ginger Minj. I really... All right, listen.
It's harder to hide my reaction out of face.
Who's winning this season of Drag Race? My prediction is still Ginger Minj.
However, this is of course all just speculation, and maybe Naomi just meant that she didn't think Ginger should win the season, rather than because they have a feud. But because of all these different occasions where Bob has seemingly called out Ginger, people have started to say that Ginger has a habit of making things up. So that's why I decided to look into all of this, and I kind of went down a rabbit hole, and I decided to share it all because I found it interesting, because I didn't know all of this, and I thought you might find it interesting as well. Hello everyone, and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets, and drama. So I'm here with a video where I'll be going through two recent bits of drama within the Drag Race world. This includes Shea Coulee's drag daughters recently reportedly disowning her, and an update about Lexi Love's ongoing legal issues over her name. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. Also, if you like these videos and want to keep up to date with all things Drag Race, make sure you hit subscribe because it really does make a big difference. Thank you! Okay, so we're going to start off with the recent news that reportedly Shea Coulee has been disowned by her drag daughters. This story was first brought to my attention by a follower of mine, but shortly after it was all over Reddit and social media, and news outlets have also picked up on the story. To explain the backstory a bit, as we know, Shea Coulee competed on Season 9 and went on to win All Stars 5 and later competed in the All Winners season All Stars 7. Shea was already a well-known queen, especially within the Chicago drag scene, and Drag Race catapulted her even further into fame. Shea has 3 drag daughters who previously had her name. These were Kenzie Coulee, Bambi Banks Coulee, and Chloe Coulee, who all represented the drag house Maison Coulee. However, it appears that very recently, all 3 of Shea's drag daughters have dropped the Coulee part of their name at the same time. They all posted things on social media that very heavily hinted that they dropped Shea's last name due to some problems. A day or so ago, Kenzie posted an Instagram story saying, "After 10 years of performing as firstborn of Maison Coulee, I am changing my name to Kenzie the Dragon, but I know I will always be your favourite Coulee, aligning myself with peace, community and love, associating me with myself, cleansing my orbit of narcissists and energy leeches, letting misery be its own company. To all my supporters and fans that know me and love my art, this is simply part of the evolution." This was followed up with a longer post which said, "Me and my sisters have and always will be pillars of our community and representations of greatness. Every stage and room we grace, we bring joy. To all up-and-coming performers, be wary of grown adults trying to belittle you, who claim your successes as theirs when they were nowhere to be found for years, who align themselves with you because they see your light and want to leech from your energy. Be wary of these these drag family structures, don't let anyone impose their narcissistic parental abuse onto you. You're not a character in their show. Let's just say having 1 million plus followers will truly have a B word in psychosis, have you surrounded by clout-chasing yes men who agree with everything you say. No amount of facials will get rid of the devil eye. Touch grass and call your mamas if you can. Stay mentally healthy, y'all. And although these posts didn't name Shay specifically, it seems pretty obvious who she was referring to because Shay does have over 1 million followers on Instagram. Chloe posted a lengthy grid post which said, "As you can see, some changes have been made. Now it's too much to get into at once, so when the time is right, you'll be informed in my own words, but I will clarify a few things. My sisters are still my sisters. The bond we share is too tight to break. Nothing has changed between us, we're still a unit. I will now like to be referred to by my original last name, Park. And no, I will not tell you what happened until I am ready to tell it. This is not gossip for you to approach me with in hopes for some quick tea. Any questions about this without me bringing it up myself will result in a halted conversation. Unlike someone else in this situation, I choose to be a little more classy about this matter, and I will tell my story when I'm ready and it's not just words on a screen. But Reddit lovers, if you're watching, I'll feed you one piece. Don't believe everything you see on TV. Remember, I've been behind that curtain for years. Love you all, and I hope this doesn't change any relationships I've built with you over the years." She also posted an Instagram story which seemed to be pointed at Shay, although she didn't say her last name, and the story said, "Let's see, you sat in my biological mother's face and lied to her before she passed away, making a promise you did not keep. You taught me zero as a drag quote parent, and you constantly put others above us because they kissed your ass more / fed your ego or had some kind of fame. But you're a quote good person who tried all they could. Comical." On top of that, Bambi Banks posted this Instagram story which said, "Also, to all the weirdos only here for tea, unless we are friends you won't be getting any from me, so you can stop watching my stories y'all have had muted for years lol, it's okay, it's only peace and love over here." As you can imagine, after the three of them posted these things on social media, it started to blow up with people talking about this and speculating what happened. Some people were speculating that the posts implied that Shay had not been very respectful to them, which is why they have seemingly disowned her. However, other people criticised the three of them, saying they were, quote, vague booking, which means when someone posts ambiguous things on social media in order to get attention. After all of this happened, people then started commenting on Shay's most recent Instagram posts, asking her to address what happened, with some people even saying that if she doesn't address it, the internet will decide for themselves. People also commented saying, "May I know the tea, please?" which is a reference to a viral meme based on this tweet by Cynthia Lee Fontaine, and people often post this as a joke on social media when they want someone to explain the tea. Shay hasn't officially responded from what I can see, however she did post a few things in her Instagram stories which seem like they might be related to this. For example, she reposted a quote from Toni Morrison, which was posted by a different account, which says, "If you wanna fly, you got to give up the bleep that weighs you down." There was then another quote post which said, "This era is called keeping a good heart but being more selective about who gets access to it." There was also a post with a street sign on a bollard which said, "No revenge because the peace I gained was greater than what I lost." Most recently, there was another quote post which said, "Absolutely nothing that is meant for me will require me to compromise my integrity, lower my energy, or abandon my values and boundaries to receive it." So although Shay didn't name the drama to do with her drag daughters specifically in these posts, it seems very likely that these posts are a vague response to the situation. As I mentioned earlier, this news story in general got picked up by a few different news outlets, such as Pink News, Them, and The Tab. The articles seem to contain the same information that I've talked about here, however they said that they did reach out to Shay for official comment, but so far it doesn't look like Shay has responded. As I mentioned, the internet seems to be a bit split at the moment, with some people criticising Shay, saying she must have done something wrong, but others were defending Shay, saying we don't know the full story, so we shouldn't jump to conclusions, and it's Shay's decision whether she wants to respond to it or not. So we'll have to wait and see if any further updates come out about this situation. But as I always say, please do not send hate to any of the people, just enjoy this sort of content passively and don't get involved. And finally, we're going to move on to a quick update regarding the Lexi Love legal issues to do with her name. I did talk about the backstory of this situation in more detail in a previous video, which I'll link to in the description. However, just as a quick summary, a Twitter user named Lexi Love, whose legal name is Selena Scola, is apparently an actress, musician, and AI architect. She claimed that Drag Race Lexi Love, who goes by Claire Barnes, was violating her trademark by using the name Lexi Love. Lexi/Selena subsequently got Drag Race Lexi's Spotify, Apple Music and Cameo accounts taken down, saying it violated her trademark. She also posted cease and desist posts saying Lexi can't use the name Lexi Love for bookings. Drag Race Lexi then posted about the situation, saying she was going to have to change her name and she'd already lost some bookings because of this situation. Since my last video, there have been a few updates about the situation, so let's get into them. At the time when I made my previous video, Drag Race Lexi's Twitter and Instagram accounts were still active, although she feared that they might get taken down soon. Since then, Lexi's Twitter account has been officially suspended. Lexi then posted about it on Instagram stories saying, RIP to my Twitter/X, we had a good run, December 2024 to August 2025. Hope to be back soon. If anyone knows anyone that works there, let me know so I can try to get it back. The other Lexi then posted about this on Twitter, thanking the platform for removing Lexi's Twitter account. Drag Race Lexi then seemed to change her name on Instagram to Cody Barnes, which is her dead name. Lexi posted about the change in an Instagram story saying, due to whatnot, I am forced to use my dead name, the only one I know no one can attack, so no one can close my accounts until I figure things out. Due to this whole legal issue, Lexi had posted previously saying that several venues had decided not to book her because of all of this. Well, there seems to be another example of this. There was a post about Pride Night at Kings Island, which is part of Cincinnati Pride. They posted recently saying, unfortunately, due to unforeseen scheduling conflicts, Lexi will no longer be able to participate as one of our headliners for this year's Pride Night at Kings Island. She wishes everyone the best and is devastated to be missing the event and celebrating with you. We send all our love to Lexi, our hometown superstar, and can't wait for all of you to get to see her again really soon. People in the comments on this post said that the quote unforeseen scheduling conflicts are likely to do with this ongoing trademark issue. Others pointed out that they only refer to her as Lexi in the post rather than Lexi Love, which could be interpreted as further evidence that this happened due to the trademark issue. I also checked, and in a previous post the day before by the same account, they posted a photo of the lineup for this event, and in that photo they did use the name Lexi Love. The other Lexi, aka Selena, has continued to post about the situation because a lot of Drag Race fans were commenting on her posts, calling her out for what she did to Lexi and calling her trash. Because not only did she cause Lexi these issues, but she did post several unnecessary things about Lexi, such as bringing up her HIV status, being a previously unhoused person, and being trafficked in the sex market. Lexi/Selena gave various explanations, saying that the reason she brought it up was because people were getting the two of them confused and attributing those things to her. She also claimed that she received death threats and labels of transphobia, presumably from people who thought that she was Drag Race Lexi. She also tweeted saying that Instagram removed Drag Race Lexi's account in December 2024 after her initial report, but they reinstated it later, and Lexi's account went from 25,000 followers to 255,000 followers after she appeared on Drag Race. As I mentioned in my last video, the other Lexi's initial Twitter post had a community note later attached to it, which said, "The owner of this trademark repeatedly let it lapse, including much of the time period that season 17 of RuPaul's Drag Race was filming and airing. The drag queen Lexi Love has been performing under that name for nearly a decade before season 17 began airing." People also accused Lexi/Selena of only doing all of this because she was jealous that Lexi's name started to grow because of Drag Race. But Lexi said that she reinstated the trademark in February 2024 because Drag Race was using the name in advertising. She also refuted claims that she's a Trump supporter or transphobic. However, people in the comments still said that what she's done to Drag Race Lexi was unnecessary and cruel, and that many of her posts were very hypocritical. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with Drag Race Lexi and whether she does change her name so she can get her accounts reinstated and that it doesn't affect her livelihood going forward. Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. So I'm back for another Roscoe's recap, and this viewing party was for All Stars 10 episode 3, and the guests this week were Deja Skye and Irene the Alien. Today we're going to be talking about Irene calls out her former drag daughter Ariete. Ariete then made some serious accusations against Irene. And Irene and Deja reveal what production did to the queens after the fallout at the beginning of this week's episode. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. So they started off by asking Deja and Irene what it was like being back on Drag Race and in the workroom. Irene joked that this was basically her first time because she was first eliminated on her original season, and she really likes everyone in her bracket. She also said it was cool to do well on Drag Race because, quote, "I had never experienced that before." Deja said for her it felt, quote, "correct to be back and she should be there, and even though she was still healing from her surgery, she wanted to go back and prove that she is an even better queen than she was on season 14. Host Naysha Lopez said a lot of queens said no to All Stars 10 because they didn't understand the format with the brackets, or they just didn't like the format, so she asked if it was an easy decision for Deja and Irene to say yes. Irene joked that she was in, quote, "no position to say no to anything," and everyone laughed. Deja said for her it wasn't an immediate yes and she had to think about it for a day because she was still healing, but she thought why not because it's only 3 guaranteed episodes, so you don't have to spend as much on outfits as you would on a regular season. They then talked about the beginning of this week's episode when the queens gave out their MVQ points, and Aja was annoyed because she gave her point to Olivia, but Olivia gave her point to Deja, even though Aja and Olivia were supposed to have an alliance. Irene explained that the interesting thing was they filmed that part of the episode on a Friday. Then, over the weekend, production made sure the queens were not allowed to talk to each other and they were kept separate. Irene added that usually the queens were allowed to hang out and go on smoke breaks together and things like that, but this particular weekend they weren't allowed because, quote, "they didn't want anybody to resolve the conflict." This meant that Aja and Olivia were still stewing on this all weekend until they came back to film on Monday. Deja said that when they came back to film, she thought everyone was cool, but when they were in the van going to set, Aja said, quote, "everyone, no hard feelings about today," implying that something was about to happen, and everyone was really confused. Deja also added that Phoenix, quote, "would not look at me," and Deja was confused because she had asked Phoenix if there was a problem on the Friday, and Phoenix said no, but Deja joked that on the Monday, quote, "there was a problem." And this was because Phoenix said she felt that it was shady that the others had alliances, and no one had given Phoenix a point even though she only has 1 point. Also, they kept referring to what happened at the beginning of the episode as, quote, "the fallout," and Deja joked about that name, and then Irene said, quote, "that's what the producers called it." The other host, Caramel, said that some people were worried that with only 3 episodes we wouldn't get much drama, but the queens so far have delivered with the drama. Irene then said, quote, wait till the next effing bracket B word, and everyone laughed. Naysha added that she's, quote, heard a few things about that too. Deja also joked that when she left filming, she hoped that the episodes would be fun when people watch them back, because she didn't think there was that much drama, but now, watching it back, quote, I was mother effing wrong. They discussed this confrontation in the workroom a bit more, and Naysha said, usually these conversations go on a lot longer than what was shown in the edit, and asked if anything was cut out. Deja said it got, quote, extremely heated. Irene said she was sat there eating popcorn while it happened, and it sort of got cut out of the episode, but you can briefly see it in one of the wider shots. Irene said there's so much that happened, but she's not sure if she can say anything. Naysha said, quote, you absolutely can, I checked, and everyone laughed. But Irene joked that she doesn't want to get into trouble and she doesn't believe Naysha. However, Irene said she would keep it vague and said, quote, after the conversation, not everybody wanted to continue in the competition, and people in the audience gasped. The other host, Batty Davis, asked if it was, quote, one of the white girls, and Deja said no. Deja also clarified it wasn't her. Naysha guessed that it must be Olivia, and both Irene and Deja said Naysha was making all kinds of assumptions, but they didn't confirm or deny who it was. Naysha also asked Deja what her thought process was on giving her MVQ point to Olivia. Deja explained she had an alliance with Olivia, and she had no idea that Aja and Olivia also had an alliance. But in hindsight, because Phoenix helped Deja in the last episode, Deja said she should have given her point to Phoenix. Deja also said she wanted to address something, and she revealed that although she's lucky that she doesn't tend to get a ton of hate mail, she did get a DM from someone after this week's episode saying that the fact that Deja chose who she gave her point to based on skin colour was, quote, despicable. But Deja said that she will, quote, never apologise for wanting a melanated person to be in the top. She also explained that a person of colour has it harder right off the bat, and that was the whole goal of the Melanation station, to make sure that one of them was in the top, and everyone clapped and cheered for Deja. They moved on, and Naysha asked Irene how preparing for All Stars was different than preparing for her original season, especially as she went home first. Irene said that she spent twice the amount on these 3 episodes that she did for her entire season 15 runway package. This was because she knew what it felt like to spend lots of money and then not get to show everything. So when she found out that they would get to show everything for these 3 episodes, she wanted to make sure that she showed that this is what you would have seen if she had stayed on season 15. Cara then said that one of the VIPs had a question, which was, what do the queens think of the new format of this season, and what do they like about it, and what do they not like about it? Deja said she's going to be honest, the thing she liked is that because there's only 6 people in the room at once, quote, there is no chance that someone's going to be hidden and someone's going to be under-edited. Because with a big cast, there are a lot of personalities going on, but with a smaller cast, you each get a good amount of airtime and storylines, which is what she loves about this format. Irene said she thinks that for several seasons now, the producers have been trying to work out a way to make sure that, quote, All Stars is worth going back for, and they don't want the queens to spend lots of money on outfits but then don't get to actually use them. And they've tried several things like non-elimination seasons, but the fans didn't like it because there were no stakes. Then they did things like the Fame Games on All Stars 8, but the queens didn't really like it, which Naysha agreed with and said that it was, quote, stupid as F. So Irene feels that this new format is a, quote, happy medium between all of those things. They moved on to this week's episode where they had to give makeovers to basketball players, and because Irene won the mini challenge, she got to decide the pairings. Batty said that Irene's choices seemed to be quite fair, but Deja said, quote, oh, work, and people gasped and laughed. Deja laughed and said she's already said this to Irene, but full transparency, she would have, quote, loved someone who was my complexion. However, her partner Abby was, quote, perfect because she was up for anything. So although Deja was anxious at first because they have different complexions, she was actually really happy that she got Abby as her partner. Irene explained that the reason for her choices were because the last two were Abby and Lauren, and Irene knew that all of the queens had prepared makeover looks, and Abby's body type was more similar to Deja's, and Lauren's body type was more similar to Bosco's, which meant that they were more likely to fit into the makeover outfits that the queens had already brought with them. They moved on, and Cara said, "We've seen some queens, such as Deja, who have alliances," but she asked if Irene has an alliance with anyone. Irene said yes, and said that she and Bosco would go back to the hotel and, quote, "make the handlers let us have a smoke break together every night where we would just talk strategy." However, Irene added that she and Bosco never discussed the alliance on camera because they're smart, and they knew that if they did, the producers would have put them in a position where they had to choose between each other or another girl. Naysha asked if she's right in thinking that both Irene and Bosco live in Seattle, and Irene said yes, and she said that they actually live down the street from each other and they've been friends for ages. Naysha also asked if the two of them had called each other to ask if they got the call for All Stars 10, and Irene nodded. Naysha asked if they knew that they were going to be in the same bracket, and Irene said, quote, "Oh girl, we were sharing designers." They talked more about this week's challenge, which was the makeover challenge, but they also had to write, record, and perform verses to the song Shoot Your Shot. Deja questioned why they didn't get them to do a basketball look or some kind of sports-related look, and implied that it was a bit odd that they all had such different types of outfits. Caramel also said that it was weird that they made the makeover partners perform in their runway outfits. Deja also confirmed that they only had one day to do all of the preparation for this challenge, so it was very quick. Irene added that even Jamal Sims, the choreographer, when they were practicing, he said, quote, "Damn, we did not give y'all enough time." They moved on to the runways, and Deja said she had some tea to spill about her outfits. Deja explained that she originally had two, quote, "gorgeous custom-made corseted looks for the makeover," but because her partner was short and not Deja's size, Deja said she doesn't know how to take in corsets, so they couldn't use those outfits because they didn't fit. But Deja had these two other looks which she used instead. And originally, Deja's partner was supposed to be in the Galinda pink outfit, but she asked to try on the green one instead, and she loved it because of the black hair and she wanted to do something totally different, so she and Deja ended up switching outfits. Deja said about the outfits, quote, "Was it the most inspirational thing ever? No, but she thinks that they looked good." They had also said earlier that something similar happened to Bosco and her partner, and Bosco's partner preferred the outfit that Bosco was originally going to wear, so they ended up switching as well. Deja then said about her partner shaving her eyebrows. She came into the workroom and told Deja that she sweats profusely through her brows. Deja hadn't planned to shave her eyebrows, but because she said that she sweats so much through her eyebrows it would ruin the makeup, Deja asked her if it was okay to shave them off, and her partner said absolutely. Also, while we're talking about Deja's outfits, I saw some tea outside of Roscoe's that's also related to this topic. Deja recently shared a few videos on TikTok where she explained that for the coming and going runway, she hired a designer to make the outfit, and she had been admiring this designer for a long time. She paid for the outfit, but the designer was not very communicative. There was a sketch for the outfit and Deja showed it, and Deja kept asking for progress photos of the outfit, but she didn't get any, and it kept getting closer and closer to the filming deadline. Finally, Deja got some photos of the outfit, and she was obviously not very happy with the end product of how it looked compared to the sketch.
Keep in mind this is the original sketch, okay? Keep that in your mind. It looks nothing like the sketch. The colors are off. There's no waist. I was shook. I was so shook.
She also said that it had ropes as straps to hold it up, and she wasn't happy with what she paid for.
In order for it to stay on, he used ropes for the arms. Ropes. Just a cheap rope. When I put this on, I felt frumpy. I felt I did not feel good at all.
Deja explained that she only had a few days before she had to go and film, so a friend of hers who's a designer, who she's worked with before, said that they would try and make some changes to the outfit and try and salvage it. And after Deja posted these videos on TikTok, I did see some comments saying that they didn't think the original look was that bad, to which Deja replied and said, I mean, each to their own. Then someone else in a comment said, it's fine though, maybe couture is not just on Deja's style. And Deja replied saying, then when I wear it, you'll read me, there's literally no winning. And I just thought this was interesting context because we've heard many times before that queens have had issues with designers and they end up paying but not receiving what they wanted. And this often affects the queen's run on the show. Anyway, back to Roscoe's, and Cara said it seemed that all of the makeover partners were comfortable with everything and asked if there was any hesitation from any of the partners. Irene and Deja said Phoenix's partner, Heron, didn't really want to do certain things, which is why Deja was so glad that her partner was down for everything. Irene also shared that production wheeled out a rack of pads, undergarments and breasts that they can use for the makeovers, and they just keep them in the studio between seasons. But Irene said because they've been used by multiple makeover partners over the years, they were, quote, soaked into, crusty and gross as F. They then got to the part of the episode when Irene won the challenge and everyone clapped and cheered for Irene. They asked Irene how it felt, and Irene said she knows it sounds really petty, but she felt like saying, quote, F you to everyone who was counting me out because I was the first out. Irene also said that all drag queens have egos, and she went into season 15 thinking that she was that girl, and even after her elimination she still felt like that, but no one got to see it. But then, after doing so well on All Stars 10, she said she couldn't wait for people to find out how sickening she is. They then talked about the moment when the bottom 4 queens gave out their MVQ points. Deja said they only had a few seconds between leaving untucked and then having to do their MVQ points. Irene said it was really, quote, big-brained of the producers to make the queens write down the names so that the queens couldn't strategize or change their answers. Deja then said, quote, and then the lineup is, yeah. And Naysha agreed and said that did you notice who was the first in the lineup and who was last? And Deja nodded and slightly sarcastically said, quote, wild. Later, Cara asked Naysha would she ever go back to All Stars if they had the same format as this season. Naysha said, quote, oh, absolutely not, and everyone laughed. Naysha added, quote, F Drag Race, I'm over it, I love it, I'm a fan, I will watch forever, will I compete again? F no. Naysha said that she is not a masochist and it, quote, just doesn't work for me. And she's fully accepted that, and the way that she competes on the show doesn't define her or her talent. She explained that she is a, quote, perfectionist, but the people who do the best on the show are the people who, quote, colour outside of the lines. Naysha added that they edit the queens to fit the narrative they want, and Naysha said on her All-Stars, she was doing things like running around the workroom being silly, and she was also joking with RuPaul during the main stage critiques, but none of that was shown because it didn't fit the narrative they were trying to portray for her. They moved on and talked about the critiques for this week, and that Michelle said that some of the outfits looked a bit, quote, costumey. Interestingly, Irene said that she also got the same critique, but they just didn't include it in the episode. Cara then asked another VIP question, which was, how did the queens in bracket 1 feel that they sort of got one less episode than the other brackets because it was a double premiere, so they only had 2 weeks rather than 3? And if you've watched my Have Your Say for last week, you'll know that Deja already talked about this in a live video, saying that they were all annoyed and vented their frustrations to the network, but she said the network doesn't care about the Queen's well-being and they only care about views. And if you want to know more about that, I'll link to that video in the description. But in terms of what Deja said at Roscoe's, she sort of said the same thing, and she said, quote, we were mother effing peed. However, Irene said she thinks that it's balanced because the premiere is always the most watched episode of the season, so although they only got 2 weeks technically, it probably still evened out with the other episodes because it was the premiere. Deja said, quote, "Who said that?" kind of sarcastically, and people laughed. Deja explained that her issue was that when you go back on All Stars, you go back so that you can get booked. And promoters tend to start booking queens partway through the season. So if you're only on 2 weeks at the start of the season, you're not going to be seen anymore. And that's why she was, quote, highly upset. But she agreed that Irene has a point about the premiere episode getting the highest viewership of the season, and in fact, the premiere of All Stars 10 had the highest viewing figures since All Stars 7. They moved on and started talking about the queens in the other brackets, and they brought up Mistress Isabel Brooks and how shady she is. Irene joked that, quote, "If you love your mental health, competing with Mistress is not something you should do." Naysha joked that Mistress sometimes says stuff that makes you want to pull your wig off and swing on her because, quote, "she really knows how to get under people's skin and it's a talent." Irene said Mistress admitted to her that, quote, "I don't believe there is a line." And Irene joked and said, quote, "That's your effing problem, there is a line." Deja said she worked with Mistress for months on Work the World and Mistress is, quote, "effing wild." Later on, they said something kind of interesting, which was about the guest judge for this week, who is actress Kate Beckinsale. Irene said that she is a, quote, "total hag" and goes out all the time, and she's actually very good friends with Drag Race UK queen Bagga Chips. And apparently Kate has a bunch of pictures of drag queens in her house. After that, they were talking about supporting the queens on the season, and Cara had a question for Irene, which is that she's the drag mother of season 17 contestant Ariete, so did Irene help Ariete get ready for her season? Deja started laughing and shifting in her chair, and Irene just said, quote, "no comment," and everyone gasped and laughed. Naysha said that she wanted to comment because she had heard something about this, but she didn't. Just to explain for those of you who may not know, Ariete was Irene's drag daughter, and there are photos of them together online. However, when Ariete was announced as being cast on season 17, there were online rumours saying that Ariete and Irene had fallen out and they were no longer drag related. There were also some other rumours saying that Ariete had fallen out with multiple queens in the local scene. However, these were just rumours, so this may not be true. However, it did seem that Irene and Ariete were no longer on speaking terms, and what Irene said at Roscoe's seems to confirm this. There was also some tea that happened about this situation outside of Roscoe's. As you may know, Mistress Isabel Brooks has a YouTube channel, and she posts funny videos where she often talks to other Drag Race queens and they talk about other queens. Well, in Mistress's most recent video, she was interviewing queens at the All Stars 10 premiere, and one of the queens was Irene. In the video, Mistress asked Irene what her relationship is like with Ariete, and Irene made it clear that they are no longer related, and confirmed there are clearly issues between the two of them. Here is what Irene said.
This first question, it says, are you still associated with Ariete?
No.
Okay, they said, if so or not, why did you let Ariete go on Drag Race without any skills other than sewing garments?
I actually gave her a whole rundown on what she should be doing on the show, and she didn't listen to me.
How would you describe your situation, your relationship with Ariete? Because that was or is your daughter.
Not any longer. That's not, no.
Is it, you think it could be saved?
No, I will say this. I never forgive someone who f***s with my money, my character, or my man.
As you can imagine, this clip from Mistress's video went viral on social media, with lots of people posting and commenting on it, and multiple people even tagged Ariete asking what happened between her and Irene. It seems that Ariete must have seen the clip because Ariete tweeted shortly afterwards saying, "If y'all only knew the real tea, I'ma keep it cute because I'm trying to grow." Ariete then seemingly made a joke about what Irene had said about Ariete messing with her money, character, or her man, because Ariete then put a poll up on her Twitter saying, "Now I want to hear from the fans, which one do y'all think I effed with?" Also, I thought this was the end of the drama. However, overnight after I recorded the first part of this video, Arrietty seems to have posted a lot more information, including what seemed like some serious accusations against Irene. Arrietty deleted all of these tweets quite soon after she posted them, so I didn't see them myself. However, people have posted screenshots all over Reddit and Twitter, which is how I was able to get copies of them. And I decided to wait with publishing this video so I can include this new information in the video. So, the first tweet that Arrietty did said, "So yes, the drama was about money. I produced and booked a show in Seattle. I invited Irene to come host. She got on the race, as in Drag Race, and got a raise. Cool, I got on the race. All of a sudden, money is tight. Okay, as a producer/booker, I tried to plan a way to divvy up the earnings." Which is exactly what show producers do. It's not a crazy or wild concept. Every show producer deals with this. She didn't want to make any changes, and it looks like I was trying to, quote, steal/mess with her money. It was $50, y'all. $50 out of her $1,000. And to be frank, her friends hated me already, so at this point she already had made up her mind about me. She just needed a reason to call it quits. Period. That's the story, so no, it wasn't character. You did that to yourself when you said and did racist bleep, and everyone hated you a while back, remember? And no, it definitely wasn't man, because I'ma be perfectly clear, I F men. I don't F prepubescent children. Let's just say that. I also have plenty of details about both topics if any outlet wants them. Y'all thinking I was aborted? Nah, I was released from my shackles. Someone then asked Arrietty for clarification what she meant by the word prepubescent and does she mean twinks. Arrietty replied saying, "I don't know, you tell me. I'm not the one IDing the, quote, boys I'm sleeping with to make sure they're of age. Now, how do you get to that point?" Arrietty posted another tweet which was about the racism accusations, which said, "And the racism, just ask the POC girls that aren't cool with her now about it. There are many queens that have called her racist in recent years, some still work with her." Someone else then reposted one of Arrietty's tweets asking why none of this information had come to light before Irene called Arrietty out. Arrietty responded saying, "Great question, because Irene is a scary/intimidating person. She could ruin your drag career in the local bars, and at this point I don't give an F. I will not be silenced." Apparently, one of Irene's drag family members named Norvina Dubois then posted an Instagram story of the meme of Dakota Johnson on Ellen, where she said, "Actually, no, that's not the truth, Ellen." And people took this to mean that Norvina was saying that what Arrietty had been saying was not true. The main accusation that people then seemed to be asking Arrietty about was the one about prepubescent boys, with people saying that that's a major accusation, and if it's untrue, Irene could sue Arrietty. However, it seems that Arrietty sort of backtracked on that, because she later tweeted saying, "Okay, those accusations were wild, but we have shown each other our likings/porn. And it was very sus. Her friends have running jokes about her, quote, she's gonna bag a young one, watch out, or, quote, don't let her near any schools. I will say, prepubescent child was crazy though." As I mentioned earlier, Arrietty has since deleted all of these tweets as well as the responses, and there has been backlash against Arrietty since then, with people saying that she was making serious accusations against Irene without providing proof. But that's all we know as of now, so we'll have to wait and see if any more information comes out about this. However, please remember that as usual, my videos are just for informational purposes, so please do not send hate to any of the queens involved and just consume this type of content passively. Going back to Roscoe's, and they talked about the fact that the queens did not do entrance lines on this season like they usually do, because they entered on the main stage rather than in the workroom. Deja said they did all have entrance lines prepared, so they said them instead when they went back into the workroom. However, apparently, Bosco's entrance line was, quote, "Can I get a Courvoisier straight up?" And Irene said because of Bosco's entrance line, they cut all of the entrance lines. Irene and Deja didn't confirm the reason, but what I assume happened is, because Cavassier is a brand of cognac, I assume it's something to do with copyright or product placement rules, and it's common on TV shows that you're not allowed to mention or show brand names unless they're a sponsor of the show, because otherwise you may have to pay a licensing fee to the brand. And there have been previous examples of this on Drag Race which are quite well known. For example, on All Stars 2, during the reading challenge, it's assumed that when Tatiana was reading Alaska, she probably said the name of a Mexican restaurant like Chipotle or Taco Bell. However, because those are brand names, they clearly made Tatiana record part of her sentence again, and you can hear that the word, quote, Mexican has been clearly added in post-production to replace whatever brand name Tatiana apparently said.
Alaska, I finally got to listen to anus, and I get it, because it sounds like what my anus does after eating Mexican.
And if you're interested in more of these Drag Race editing mistakes, I did do a whole video about this, which I'll link to in the description. But back to Roscoe's, and Naysha was asking for some clarification on what's going to happen with the twist that they revealed, which was that one of the eliminated queens gets to come back. Irene explained it, and I think she gave more information than they did in the episode, so I thought it'd be good to share what Irene said. Irene said that each of the regular judges gets to pick one eliminated queen to potentially bring back to the competition. It can be any of the queens, and they can be from any of the brackets. Those queens' names then get put into Bruno's hopper, and one of the queens' names gets chosen, and that queen gets to come back for the finale, so presumably they get to skip the semi-final. Irene said that she thinks it also ended up just being Michelle, Ross and Carson who picked a queen, and the other judges like T.S. Madison and Laura Roach were not involved. They then moved on to the Q&A, and one of the questions was, why do we not get reunion episodes anymore, and instead we get lip-sync Lollapaloozas, which are good, but the person asking the question said they miss the messy reunions. Irene said, quote, the girls are too concerned with being liked by the fans, and too afraid to give the drama that the reunions ask for. Irene shared that the last reunion there was on her season, which was season 15, and Irene's story producer said to her, quote, think of this reunion as your audition for All Stars. According to Irene, the season 9 reunion is why Aja and Pheromone got their All-Stars calls, so Irene went into the season 15 reunion, quote, with the intention of making television. But Irene said that not a single other queen on the cast had the same intention. And for example, Mistress was probably holding back because she still thought that she had a chance to win season 15 and didn't want to ruin her chances. Naysha said she has her own theory as to why they don't do reunions anymore, which is that Roscoe's is the only review show that has the queens from the season, and the queens often share backstage tea or explain what really happened when they're at Roscoe's, so there's not really a need for a reunion, and in fact there have been queens who went to reunions in the past and confronted other queens about things that they said at Roscoe's. Naysha mentioned that they sort of rebranded the reunion, and now it's the Bring Back My Girls with T.S. Madison that they do at DragCon. And because it happens quite a long time after the season comes out, there's probably more drama to talk about that's happened in the meantime. Irene also shared some information from the production side, which was, for season 15, at the finale, Anitra accidentally injured one of her dancers and there was a 3-hour delay because of it, and I did talk about this in a previous video. But Irene shared that production want to avoid that sort of thing happening again, so they started filming the finales in-house, and they also have to film the reunion in-house at the same time as the finale, and they only have the studio for a certain amount of time during the year, so they'd have to film the reunion before the season aired, and that would mean there's no point doing a reunion. And lastly, there was a question from an audience member who said they thought the double premiere was stupid, and they asked, would it have been better to alternate each week between the different brackets rather than showing all of the same brackets episodes back to back? Deja agreed that that would work better, but Irene said no, she doesn't agree. She thinks that doing it the way they're currently doing it spaces the tension out evenly throughout the season, whereas if you alternated between the different brackets each week, the final episodes when the queens find out who makes it to the semi-finals would all come in the 7th, 8th and 9th week. Whereas the current format keeps the quote spikes and tension throughout the season, and it keeps viewership more locked in. Deja said that she thinks alternating between the brackets would keep the tension more, in her opinion. But Naysha said no, because not everyone sticks with the season from beginning to end, and she doesn't think that alternating the brackets would work, because usually the first episodes and the final episode are the most watched, and the ones in the middle tend to get lost, and it also gets hard to keep up with what's happening throughout the season. And Deja said that she thinks that's smart, and she agreed. Hello everyone, and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets, and drama. So, I'm back for a new season of Roscoe's Recaps, and this viewing party was for All Stars 10 episodes 1 and 2. And there were no external guests for this week, so it was just the hosts, Naysha Lopez, Batty Davis, and Caramel DeVille. So today we're going to be talking about Nicole Paige Brooks exposes which queen was supposed to be on All Stars 10 but wasn't, Phoenix claps back at Ice Spice's critique about her, and Naysha Lopez reveals that a particular queen was supposed to be on All Stars 10 but was apparently not allowed to compete. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. Okay, so they first started off by watching episode 1 of All Stars 10. They started off with the hosts talking about what they had been up to since the last Roscoe's viewing parties for season 17. Naysha joked that last season she had said some things and was hard on some of the queens, and she said she wanted to make sure that this season, quote, "I'll do that times 10, and everyone laughed. Naysha gave a disclaimer that Roscoe's is a review show and they have personal relationships with most of the queens. So if they say something about the queens, such as not liking their outfits, it does not mean they don't like the queens or that it's an attack on their character. It's just a review show and they're just giving their opinions. Anyway, they then moved on, and Naysha said that she had a bit of tea about All Stars 10. According to Naysha, when they were casting for All Stars 10, they, quote, couldn't get anyone to do it. Everyone kept saying no. The reason for this apparently was because a lot of the queens didn't understand the format in terms of the different brackets and the tournament style. On top of that, in recent years for All Stars, the queens get a good stipend, which is an amount of money you get given to spend on the runway outfits, and Naysha revealed that her stipend for All Stars 8 was $10,000. However, because All Stars 10 is split into 3 brackets, and the queens only get around 3 episodes each, the stipend was a lot less. So apparently a lot of queens didn't like that they would only be getting maybe 3 episodes and less stipend, which is why a lot of queens said no. Naysha explained that a lot of queens live in LA, so they were all calling each other and asking if they had got the call for All Stars 10, and apparently Jessica Wilde was asked for All Stars 10, and she told Naysha that she said no because she didn't understand the format. So according to Naysha, they were asking everyone to be on the season, and to get this group of queens was quite a challenge. Caramel then mentioned some tea that Nicole Paige Brooks had spilled about All Stars 10, which I also saw because it was all over social media after it happened. Just to give a bit of background, you may remember that I did talk about this in one of my previous videos, but there was a rumour going around before All Stars 10 started that said that apparently Maddie Morphosis was supposed to be on this season but wasn't, and until recently this was just a rumour. However, Nicole Paige Brooks recently confirmed during a live video that Maddie was indeed supposed to be on the season, and in fact, Nicole even said that the queens are given a list of other queens who are on the season in advance so they can prepare reads for them, and Maddie's name was on the list, but then she wasn't actually on the season.
They sent us a list of names, and there was a girl on there, and we were like, we had to get ready to read this girl or whatever. And then when we got to the hotel girl, she wasn't there. Should I say the name who got not sent there. I don't know, will I get in trouble? Anyway, so they said this drag queen who is also a heterosexual, I can just say that, it was Maddie, yeah.
Nicole also revealed that because Maddie ended up not being on the season at the last minute, that's why Lydia B. Collins was cast right after season 17 finished. Nicole even said that because none of the queens knew who Lydia was, because at the point of filming All Stars 10, season 17 hadn't even aired yet, so they showed all of the All Stars 10 queens video clips of Lydia from season 17 so they would know who she was.
And they came to our room with a laptop. You know, is not going to be here. So this is the person that's going to be here. They're on season 17. And they showed us videos. They're like, here's her runway. Here's a couple of her runways. Here's her reading Mistress, because Mistress met her during filming. That's how we met Lydia. They were like, yeah, because you got to pretend that you've already seen season 17.
And as you can imagine, after Nicole spilled this tea in this live video, it was all over social media, and people were loving the fact that Nicole had spilled some juicy behind-the-scenes tea. But back to Roscoe's, and after Caramel brought this up about the fact that Maddie was supposed to be on the season but wasn't, Naysha said, quote, I'm going to, I don't know. And Naysha clearly had some tea but wasn't sure if she could say it or not, but the others told her to say it. Naysha then said, quote, there's a difference between backing out and them not taking you, and people in the audience gasped because the implication was that Maddie didn't just back out of the season, but perhaps she was not allowed to be on the season for some reason. Naysha then confirmed that it is definitely true that Maddie was supposed to be on the season, but then, quote, for some reason or another, she did not end up being on, not by her choice. And again, there were gasps from the audience. They then mentioned that Lydia must have got the call right after she got eliminated on season 17, and Lydia has since confirmed that she only had 5 days to prepare for the season. But Naysha said that in that kind of situation, Lydia had the upper hand because if production gave her the offer to be on All Stars 10 and they were desperate to replace Maddie at the last minute, Lydia could have said she needed more stipend to help her prepare in the meantime. Naysha also added that they did call another queen for All Stars 10, but Naysha said she couldn't say who it was, but then she turned away from the mic and did say the name and everyone laughed. But because she said it away from the mic, you couldn't really hear it. However, the other host, Batty Davis, then said that the queen in question was going to be doing a brunch event with Batty soon. So I checked out the Roscoe's Instagram, and the only Drag Race queen I could see on the brunch event list was Morgan McMichaels, who is scheduled to be there on the 24th of May. And rewatching back what Naysha said off the mic, it does kind of sound like she maybe said Morgan McMichaels. However, this is just an educated guess, so I can't confirm if this is correct or not. But anyway, Naysha explained that the show called this particular queen, which may or may not be Morgan McMichaels, and they have to do a background check before they cast any queen. But because the background check takes a while and it wasn't going to be done in time, the network said they weren't going to have any queen unless they had a background check. So their only option was to ask someone from season 17 because they had already recently had their background check done for season 17, so they were already approved to be on set. And that's presumably why Lydia got cast on the season. And Naysha said that she was really happy that Lydia was the one that got cast because she really turned it out on season 17 and she was a really sickening contestant. And although Naysha didn't talk about this part directly, the clip of Naysha talking about this got posted online and people were wondering whether the background check problem may have also been the reason why Maddie Morphosis wasn't cast. However, Naysha didn't address this specifically, so there's no confirmation of whether this is the reason or maybe there was another reason Maddie was not allowed to compete. Also, just as some extra additional tea that I saw outside of Roscoe's, which is to do with Bosco revealing some backstage tea about writing the verses for the song challenge. So recently, a TikTok user with the username @crybelly posted a video of Bosco and Denali from what looks like some kind of viewing party. In the video, Bosco revealed that the queens actually recorded their verses before they even started filming the season. So when the queens are in the workroom writing their lyrics, that is all fake and they're just pretending, which is why Bosco joked that her pen wasn't working.
There, we have to pretend to write things down. We've already recorded the verses. So we get into the hotel like 2 days beforehand. Like, we get into the hotel, they're like, okay, in an hour, you're gonna have to go to the studio and record your verse. So we and then move in all of our stuff to the hotel room. They tell us we have to listen to the track, write our verse, we get carted off to a recording studio. We do all of that before we even step on set to film.
For the entrances?
Yes. So we literally haven't even gotten on camera yet, and we've already fully done the backing tracks for this. So we're faking writing our lyrics in the workroom.
In the clip, it also sounds like Dawn was also at this event, but you can only hear her voice and she's not on camera. But Dawn said that it was the same on her season when they did the Power song.
We did the same thing on season 16 for the Power, whatever thing.
Yeah.
They were like, just write some down. Who cares?
Denali also added that they sometimes film the promos after eliminations.
They used to film the promos after eliminations sometimes,
right.
Stuff like that, or after. I don't know. They would. That's just a lot of TV.
But going back to Roscoe's, they then moved on, and Caramel said that what she's struggling with in this episode is Ice Spice being the guest judge. Some people gasped, and Cara clarified that she thinks that Ice Spice is a great artist, but the other hosts also agreed that they were confused why she was being the guest judge. Cara then said, quote, "Why her? Is she a gay icon?" And in the audience, most people shouted no. Cara said Ice Spice is the hot girl on the scene at the moment, but the contestants, quote, "shouldn't worry about anything." Naisha questioned whether Ice Spice really is the hot girl on the scene at the moment, and some people in the audience shouted no. Naisha then joked and said, quote, "Maybe it was the only person available." Cara then added that they already announced some of the other guest judges for All Stars 10, and wouldn't you be annoyed if you were in the group that got Ice Spice, but then another group got Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo? Naisha then joked and asked Cara why she hates Ice Spice, and Cara said, quote, "Because she thinks she's the bleep and she's really a fart," which is the name of Ice Spice's song and was the lip sync song for this week's episode, and everyone laughed. Also, there is some extra tea that I saw about this outside of Roscoe's. You may remember that in episode 1, when it came time for the judges' critiques, Ice Spice said to Phoenix, quote, "I hear you're a legendary icon, but tonight I don't think I would have been able to tell with how shy you were." And Phoenix seemed to be quite shocked by this critique. After the episode came out, a lot of people online were criticising Ice Spice, saying that she had been overly harsh and rude to Phoenix. Well, I saw that after the episode came out, Phoenix actually addressed this in an Instagram story which said, "Also, I appreciate the love from everyone about the Ice Spice comment. I'll comment more and tell the funny part about this later, but trust me when I say, my 25 years of experience and decades of contributing to my community is what makes me an icon, not 3 minutes on a TV show. That being said, I'm perfectly fine not getting, quote, icon validation from someone whose, quote, fame has come from one song about bleeping and farting." And I just thought this was an interesting clapback that Phoenix did about Ice Spice. But going back to Roscoe's, and they moved on to the runways for episode 1, and the category was tits and slits. When they got to Deja Sky's look, most people seemed to agree they weren't fans of the outfit. Batty said the outfit needed to have more of a slit. Naisha said for her, the problem is shape. People are putting on garments and there is, quote, no shape whatsoever, so what happens is you lose certain features. Naisha added that, quote, had she been padded from here to hell, that slit would have been more prominent and you would have seen it, but it just got lost. Naisha said there were also other queens who did the same thing, and you can tell which queens pad and which queens don't, and in this runway it made a huge difference. They then watched the judges' critiques, and Naysha said, quote, "My least favourite thing about this judging section, Ross Matthews," and people laughed. Naysha then repeated one of Ross's critiques and said, quote, "Oh, you picked this garment, the colour is purple." Naysha laughed and then said, quote, "What the F are you talking about? Are you serious?" Naysha then said to, quote, "hang up the judge's position and bring back T.S. Madison, Law Roach or Carson Kressley." Naysha then said, quote, "Ross, I think it's that time." However, Naysha later clarified that Ross should keep doing what he's doing and she does not want him to quit his job, but his comment was just, quote, "really stupid." They then moved on and they had a minute of silence to remember Jiggly Caliente, who sadly passed away very recently. And afterwards, Naysha sent love to Jiggly, her family, her friends, as well as anyone who loved Jiggly, and it was a lovely tribute. They then finished watching episode 1 and they moved on to episode 2 because it was a double premiere. They watched the part of the episode when in the workroom, Bosco made a seemingly jokey comment that Olivia was not going to be in the top 2 this week, which Olivia seemed annoyed about. Olivia then confronted Bosco, but Bosco said it was just a joke and that Olivia was overreacting and was being overly sensitive. At Roscoe's, Naysha said, quote, "The girls are overreacting, what the F was that?" And Batty said this is the sort of drama they want to see. Cara said Olivia was like, quote, "I'm joking with her, but I'm not joking with you." Naysha also said that it was giving, quote, "Probably because I'm not threatened by you, but maybe I am by you." It was giving insecurity, which the others agreed with. Batty said that Bosco, quote, "ate Olivia up and she was so mad about it." Naysha added that they're all queens and it's all a joke, so they can't take each other seriously. Cara said that she would be like Deja listening in the corner, and they joked about the moment when Deja sprayed the mannequin head with hairspray because she was trying to be nosy. They also talked about when Olivia and Aja were talking about who they were going to give their MVQ point to, and when Aja said she wasn't sure if she was going to give it to Olivia, Olivia seemed to get upset because she thought they had an alliance. But Naysha pointed out that Olivia didn't give Aja her point because she had already given it to Deja. Cara said it seemed like Olivia was starting to get upset, and then she realised that she had kind of done the same thing to Aja last week, so she stopped saying it. Naysha said it was kind of silly, and Batty said, quote, "It was a chop, she got caught up in her own bleep." They then moved on to the runway for episode 2, and the category was coming and going, which is a look that is different from the front to the back. They all said that Olivia's look was beautiful, but the front and the back weren't that different compared to someone like Bosco, who was a casket on the back and then a person on the front. Naysha said in general, all the looks this week were beautiful, but not all of the queens executed the theme properly. However, Batty said she would like to know what the prompt was for this runway, because sometimes they change what the category is compared to what the prompt was that the queens were given, and Naysha agreed. They then moved on to the Q&A, and an audience member asked Naysha how long she had to prepare for her original season compared to how long she had to prepare for All Stars 8. Naysha said that for All Stars 8, she was the last one to get cast, so she only had 2 weeks to get ready because someone dropped out at the last minute and they had to fill their space. They asked who it was that dropped out, but Naysha didn't want to say, but she did say that their name rhymes with Naysha. Naysha continued and said that some queens got well over a month to get ready, whereas she only had 2 weeks. And for her original season, which was season 8, she had around 4 to 5 weeks to get ready. Then, finally, an audience member asked if they think the 3 brackets on All Stars 10 were assigned evenly in terms of the mix of queens, and asked if any of the queens had any tea on how the brackets were decided. Naysha said if she were a producer, she would look at all the queens and think which queen would be good with another queen, but also which queen do you want to get to the end, and so you don't want to put that queen with another queen if you think that that queen is going to get, quote, eaten up. And you might put a certain queen in a group of weaker queens because you want to make sure that queen makes it to the end. Naysha then said, quote, "That, I promise you, is exactly how they did it." Naisha added that you can't put 6 super strong personalities in one group, and then in another group, all of them are just, quote, playing with their fingers because no one's talking. The others agreed and said that, for example, Mistress Isabel Brooks and Irene the Alien in the same group would be great, but presumably they want both of them to make it to the end, which may be why they put them in different groups, although this is just a guess based on what they were saying. So there you go, there was the Roscoe's recap for All Stars 10 episodes 1 and 2. What do you think of the format for All Stars 10, and do you like it or do you prefer the regular format? Let me know in the comments. If you'd like early access to my videos, access to the exclusive Patreon chat, as well as exclusive content, please consider checking out my Patreon. It just costs a few dollars a month and it really helps support the channel. And I'll put a link to my Patreon in the description. I'd also like to say a huge thank you to all of my new Patreon members, as well as my incredible existing Patreon members. Your support is truly so amazing, and I'm thankful every day to have such an amazing community. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate your support more than you know. Please make sure you like and comment on this video to help boost it in the algorithm and promote it to more people. And please make sure you hit that subscribe button if you like this video and want to be notified when I post more videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll join me in the future for more Drag Race gossip, secrets, and drama. Thank you so much. Bye.